Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill. For the caged bird sings of freedom. Maya Angelou, 1928 to 2014. An acclaimed American poet, storyteller, activist and autobiographer, Maya Angelou was born Marguerite Johnson in St. Louis, Missouri. Angelou had a broad career as a singer, dancer, actress, composer and Hollywood's first female black director, but became most famous as a writer, editor, essayist, playwright and poet. As a civil rights activist, Angelou worked for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. She was also an educator and served as the Reynolds Professor of American Studies at Wake Forest University. By 1975, wrote Carol E. Neubauer in Southern Women Writers, The New Generation, Angelou was recognized as a spokesperson for all people who are committed to raising the moral standards of living in the United States. She served on 2 presidential committees, for Gerald Ford in 1975 and for Jimmy Carter in 1977. In 2000, Angelou was awarded the National Medal of Arts by President Bill Clinton. In 2010, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States, by President Barack Obama. Angelou was awarded over 50 honorary degrees before her death. Angelou's most famous work, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, 1969, deals with her early years in Long Beach, St. Louis, and Stamps, Arkansas, where she lived with her brother and paternal grandmother. In one of its most evocative and controversial moments, Angelou describes how she was first cuddled, then raped by her mother's boyfriend when she was just 7 years old. When the man was murdered by her uncles for his crime, Angelou felt responsible and stopped talking. Angelou remained mute for 5 years, but developed a love for language. She read black authors like Langston Hughes, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Paul Laurence Dunbar, as well as canonical works by William Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, and Edgar Allan Poe. When Angelou was 12 and a half, Mrs. Flowers, an educated African-American woman, finally got her to speak again. Mrs. Flowers, as Angelou recalled in her children's book, Mrs. Flowers, A Moment of Friendship, 1986, emphasized the importance of the spoken word, explained the nature of and importance of education, and instilled in her a love of poetry. Angelou graduated at the top of her 8th grade class. Angelou attended George Washington High School in San Francisco and took lessons in dance and drama on a scholarship at the California Labor School. When Angelou, just 17, graduated from high school and gave birth to a son, Guy, she began to work as the first African American and first female streetcar conductor in San Francisco. As she explained in Singin' and Swingin' and Gettin' Merry Like Christmas, 1976, the third of her autobiographies, she also worked as a shake dancer in nightclubs, fry cook in hamburger joints, dinner cook in a Creole restaurant, and once had a job in a mechanic shop, taking the paint off cars with my hands. Angelou married a white ex-sailor, Tosh Angelos, in 1950. After they separated, Angelou continued her study of dance in New York City, returning to San Francisco to sing in the Purple Onion Cabaret and garnering the attention of talent scouts. From 1954 to 1955, she was a member of the cast of a touring production of Porgy and Bess. During the late 1950s, Angelou sang in West Coast and Hawaiian nightclubs before returning to New York to continue her stage career. Angelou joined the Harlem Writers Guild in the late 1950s and met James Baldwin and other important writers. It was during this time that Angelou had the opportunity to hear Dr. Martin Luther King speak. Inspired by his message, she decided to become a part of the struggle for civil rights. She was offered a position as the Northern Coordinator for Dr. King's SCLC. Following her work for Dr. King, Angelou moved to Cairo with her son and in 1962 to Ghana in West Africa. She worked as a freelance writer and was a feature editor at the African Review. When Angelou returned to the United States in the mid-1960s, she was encouraged by author James Baldwin and Robert Loomis, an editor at Random House, to write an autobiography. Initially, Angelou declined the offers, but eventually changed her mind and wrote, "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings." The book chronicles Angelou's childhood and ends with the birth of her son. It won immediate success and was nominated for a National Book Award. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is the first of Angelou's 6 autobiographies. It is widely taught in schools, though it has faced controversy over its portrayal of race, sexual abuse, and violence. Angelou's use of fiction writing techniques like dialogue and plot in her autobiographies was innovative for its time and helped in part to complicate the genre's relationship with truth and memory. Though her books are episodic and tightly crafted, the events seldom follow a strict chronology and are arranged to emphasize themes. Other volumes include Gather Together in My Name, 1974, which begins when Angelou's 17, and A New Mother, Singin' and Swingin' and Gettin' Merry Like Christmas, an account of her tour in Europe and Africa with Porgy and Bess. The Heart of a Woman, 1981, a description of Angelou's acting and writing career in New York and her work for the Civil Rights Movement. And All God's Children Need Travelling Shoes, 1986, which recounts Angelou's travels in West Africa and her decision to return without her son to America. It took Angelou 15 years to write the final volume of her autobiography, A Song Flung Up to Heaven, 2002. The book covers 4 years from the time Angelou returned from Ghana in 1964 through the moment when she sat down at her mother's table and began to write I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings in 1968. Angelou hesitated so long to start the book and took so long to finish it, she told interviewer Cheryl Connolly, because so many painful things happened to her and to the entire African American community in those 4 years, "I didn't know how to write it," she said. "I didn't see how the assassination of Malcolm X, the Watts riot, the breakup of a love affair, then the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how I could get all that loose with something uplifting in it. A song flung up to heaven deals forthrightly with these events, and the poignant beauty of Angelou's writing enhances rather than masks the candour with which she addresses the racial crisis through which America was passing." Wayne A. Holst wrote this in Christian Century. Angelou was also a prolific and widely read poet, and her poetry has often been lauded more for its depictions of black beauty, the strength of women, and the human spirit, criticising the Vietnam War, demanding social justice for all, than for its poetic virtue. Yet, "Just Give Me a Cool Drink of Water, For I Die," which was published in 1971, was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in 1972. According to Carol Neubauer in Southern Women Writers, the first 20 poems describe the whole gamut of love, from the first moment of passionate discovery to the first suspicion of painful loss. In other poems, Angelou turns her attention to the lives of black people in America from the time of slavery to the rebellious 1960s. Her themes deal broadly with the painful anguish suffered by blacks forced into submission, with guilt over accepting too much, and with protest and basic survival. As Angelou wrote her autobiographies and poems, she continued her career in film and television. She was the first black woman to have a screenplay, Georgia, Georgia, produced in 1972. She was honoured with a nomination for an Emmy Award for her performance in Roots in 1977. In 1979, Angelou helped adapt her book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, for a television movie of the same name. Angelou wrote the poetry for the 1993 film Poetic Justice and played the role of Aunt June. She also played Lelia May in the 1993 television film There Are No Children Here, and appeared as Anna in the feature film How to Make an American Quilt in 1995. One source of Angelou's fame in the early 1990s was President Bill Clinton's invitation to write and read an inaugural poem. Americans all across the country watched as he read On the Pulse of Morning, which begins, "A rock, a river, a tree," and calls for peace, racial and religious harmony, and social justice for people of different origins, incomes, genders, and sexual orientations. It recalls the civil rights movement and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous I Have a Dream speech, as it urges America to give birth again to the dream of equality. Angelou challenged the new administration and all Americans to work together for progress. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
On the Pulse of Morning by Maya Angelou. A rock, a river, a tree, host to species long since departed, marked the mastodon, the dinosaur who left dried tokens of their sojourn here on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully, "Come, you may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny." but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out to us today, you may stand upon me, but do not hide your face.
During the early 1990s, Angelou wrote several books for children, including Life Doesn't Frighten Me, 1993, which also featured the work of Jean-Michel Basquiat, My Painted House, My Friendly Chicken and Me, 1994, and Kofi and His Magic, 1996, both collaborations with the photographer Margaret Courtney Clark. Angelou's poetry collections include the complete collected poems of Maya Angelou, 1994, and Phenomenal Women, 1995, a collection of 4 poems that takes its title from a poem which originally appeared in Cosmopolitan magazine in 1978. The poem's narrator describes the physical and spiritual characteristics and qualities that make her attractive. Angelou also wrote occasional poems, including A Brave Startling Truth, 1995, which commemorated the founding of the United Nations, and Amazing Peace, 2005, a poem written for the White House Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Angelou published multiple collections of essays. Wouldn't Take Nothing for My Journey Now, 1993, contains declarations, complaints, memories, opinions, and advice on subjects ranging from faith to jealousy. Genevieve Stutterford, writing in Publishers Weekly, described the essays as quietly inspirational pieces. Anne Whitehouse of the New York Times Book Review observed that the book would appeal to readers in search of clear messages with easily digested meanings. Even the Stars Look Lonesome, 1997, is the sister volume, a book of candid and lovingly crafted homilies to sensuality, beauty, and black women, said Donna Seaman in Booklist Letter to My Daughter, was published in 2008. A Plagued Journey by Maya Angelou. There is no warning rattle at the door, nor heavy feet to stomp the foyer boards. Safe in the dark prison, I know that light slides over the fingered work of a toothless woman in Pakistan. Happy prints of an invisible time are illumined. My mouth agape rejects the solid air and lungs hold. The invader takes direction and seeps through the plaster walls. It is at my chamber, entering the keyhole, pushing through the padding of the door. I cannot scream. A bone of fear clogs my throat. It is upon me. It is sunrise, with hope its arrogant rider. My mind, formerly quiescent in its snug encasement, is strained to look upon their rapturous visages, to let them enter even into me. I am forced outside myself to mount the light and ride joined with hope. Through all the bright hours I cling to expectation until darkness comes to reclaim me as its own. Hope fades, day is gone into its irredeemable place, and I am thrown back into the familiar bonds of disconsolation. Gloom crawls around, lapping lasciviously between my toes, at my ankles, and it sucks the strands of my hair. It forgives my heady fling with hope. I am joined again into its greedy arms. Angelou's poetry often benefited from her performance of it, and during her lifetime, Angelou recited her poems before spellbound crowds. Indeed, Angelou's poetry can also be traced to African American oral traditions like slave and work songs, especially in her use of personal narrative and emphasis on individual responses to hardship, oppression, and loss. In addition to examining individual experience, Angelou's poems often respond to matters like race and sex on a larger social and psychological scale. Describing her work to George Plimpton, Angelou said, "Once I got into it, I realized I was following a tradition established by Frederick Douglass, the slave narrative, speaking in the first person singular, talking about the first person plural. Always saying I, meaning we, and what a responsibility. Trying to work with that form, the autobiographical mode, to change it, to make it bigger, richer, finer, and more inclusive in the 20th century has been a great challenge for me." In 2013, she was the recipient of the Literarian Award, an honorary National Book Award for contributions to the literary community. She died in 2014 at the age of 86. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from the past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise. I rise.